Oh, well, no, Salty. I'm just trying to find me a good Fibical or Fibonacci method or Fibonoptics variant on here that I really like, and I don't really see anything that I'm in love with as far as what they do is a mistake. I see a lot of the fib. I call them Fibicals. You know, they're Fibonoptics. Um, and I don't see enough of it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I don't see anybody showing me a chart. You know, they're not about to lay some numbers on here and do it right because they don't really have their time sequences worked out. Um, One of the harder parts with everything, you know, there's a Fibonacci sequence in everything in the universe. Like there's symmetry and a couple of types, a different way of it. Well, time symmetry works that way too, and so does the stock market apparently, from what I've been testing inside of here. Let's see. Let me pop her open here. Hmm. Well, I might do the S&P and the Nasdaq with it later. I've already done the Nasdaq with it. Let me see if it'll pop up. I gotta redo this, mind you. Yeah, so that's great. I had way more charts and stuff on this. I just deleted it and I was playing around trying to figure out some lines and stuff like that. But let's get out of here. I actually want to get to the one I've been hammering lately. That would be Advanced Auto. Okay. No better have a charts. Oh, you suck. Did not save my charts on this. But why? Alright, well, we're gonna have to go to something else and get it. Okay. In the bag of holding Anunnaki. Let's, you know, all kinds of fun stuff. Anyways, we're getting there. Okay. So this is generally what I like to do when I'm trying to chart out the map by fibicals here. The first thing I do is I start with my time scale. This being the day, I do believe. Yes, sir. This was probably Thursday, not Friday. Or no, excuse me. This was Friday. Today's Saturday. And in there you can see this is a hot damn mess, right? You can't really see nothing until we zoom in a little bit. Let's get to a better chart of it. I think this was one of them. That might be the month. Yeah, this is the 3 month actually. Okay, so what do I like to do? No matter whether it's the day, the month, the long, or something like that, I always start at the wall. Start at 0, as far back as I can get on the 5 day. Go full scale zoom and take it all the way back to the beginning of time. Big Bang, right? 13 billion years ago. And that's the joke about the company you don't know, the weight of it, and some other things about O types and charts and stuff like that. Market activity throws a XYZT into it later too. Who knows? But at any rate, I gotta find that one. All right, so now that I've had this is the very first day. Let's go back up to the minutes, just to keep it on the something you can actually use every day. Your daily user. Okay, way better. I need the tighter chart for it though. Okay. Okay, so what I like to do is, again, this crack of dawn in the morning, usually you're here a little bit before this, and I just start doing my fibical time extensions from here. I like to keep them in the first line as far as that what it is, dark gray. That's going to tell me that these are my indicators. Now, later on, whether you're paying attention to it or not, and that's so much important or not, I don't know. But it's going to start to keep us on some kind of track here about what's going on inside of these very tight moving averages in the morning, right? You know, great in the moving average. This chart shows it's a much bigger swing, but this also shows me that, you know, I'm trying, when these go up or down, that there's a little spike inside of there. And that's really giving me a lot of intensity to it. I mean, there was a down in there, and it's showing me, hey, that's starting to catch. This might not, but maybe that's overall every day at lunch, M1, M2, MN, in that time frame of base 2 to base 1 if I wanted to start a new fibicle inside of there for that time frame. Now again, you're living on the minutes, like something like that. And here you're 2 minutes in the morning. That's how tight this is. And if you've ever seen the mornings, that first 5-10 minutes or something like that, you can see how intense this is. So let's get a better view of it and see what's going on. And again, so the first thing I knew, the first minute of the day, after I had all this grid work lined out, so I had nice little measurements to do. This will help later in the day. But this first, like this one, is these first 3 moves. 1, 2, and that gives me the red and the green. I usually go, because it was a downhill slope, I'm going to do red, and that's usually down is up. So if it's starting to move into these reds, breaking barriers, then, you know, I want to stay with it. If later on in the next step, you know, if this was green, it would do what it's doing here. It would say from this fibicle to this fibicle. Well, actually, the first minute in, if you got gear, or if you got, you know, just that kind of clickety speed that, you know, your hand-eye coordination is good, you're only moving one stock in 1 minute, or you are really good with your options and puts and holds and stuff like that to figure out when and where that stuff is, this stuff's going to help out a bunch. That you could say, all right, so do the math, the triangulation. I can expect down. I would assume half of it back up because this last one was down as well. 1, 2, 3, M1, M2, MN. Coming out of the night, that'll pop back up. Well, I misgauged it. I wanted to put it back here, but it was here. And given the speed is, because you're still living in that minute, it's not going to do anything until bang, in a minute. But in 2 or 3 minutes, that's what that is. Now, if you're working your candlestick on the seconds or minutes, or watching that candlestick up and down while you're doing that, you can get a candlestick variant going on inside here, but you'd have to position it for the minutes while this is playing, or the seconds while this is playing off on the minutes, or 5 seconds or whatever it is. And you got to get good with that gear, or compensate what the gap is. Remember, everybody doesn't have this gear. They don't have. Some people are still just using their cell phones and laptops, and that's a huge volume. And you can see how the tools and equipment will rely on that and create this base crypto satire to the whole market in general, right? So again, down, up, that gives me the reds, that gives me the blues essentially for the day. I don't know if it'll rip much past those without some kind of news for it or something going on. Who knows? Paying attention to that stuff. You gotta watch. One of the words, I was super aggressive when I first started watching the CNBC, and I'm assuming a lot of you guys are too. But that kind of comes with it. And then once you get those two, that's just the regular fibicles. It comes over M1, M2, MN. You got the little triangle or line one. That's this. We're going to come down here and then say, well, make a guess. And I'm going to assume that's green, so I'm going to put a chart here and I'll throw it up here. And when I do that, it's going to stretch these lines out a little bit. In the third move, once I know what it did in the second step here, then you're going to say, well, what actually happened with that green line is it dropped down to there. Because now I'm trying to guess the next 2 to 4 or 5 minutes, right? And trying to gauge where that bottom is. Usually there's a bifurcation in it that brings you up to what the volumetrics are. When you're in green, that means it's probably going to go green. If it's trending in those directions, that's where you're going. If you were in red, because now that it was down and she's starting to send up, you can be pretty sure that she's starting to come down. And in the fibicle where you get those 3 points, 1, 2, and that's actually where it went, then you get this Higgs chord. Kind of like the red, right? It's tight inside here. It's probably where it's going to go unless there's some big outliers today. It's just moving like that in the market or whatever, trying to start to build into some of the insight on that mountain today, or day of the week, and how it's acting, XYZT, M1, M2, MN. To then say, well, that's really going to be the chord for the day. And, it may not have been the chord for the day, but let's check these in these farther fibicles, right? I'm glad we did that setup like that. Now, again, it's the numbers. That's noon. It's a mathy hack thing that lines them both up or so close. One in X. Yeah, so what that measurement is relative, and that's where the speed of light in the space moves faster than the speed of light, because this actually hadn't happened yet. Yeah. But because we know Q and P and throwing that ball in physics, if as long as they stay with these, more people are putting in terms of insurance than people or retirements and stuff like that on the mountain. Depending on whether you trust the Necron tomb world or not, and how it's operating, and then you get into this. Oh yeah, because this is a lot of inflation. I mean, this is what you would want the Fed to say. Just, well, these throws into the deep tops of these things where the tech stop it. Automatically does it for you. It takes it out of your hand unless you programmed a button. And then you weren't whatever 45 you do in life had that. And again, it'll do this math, but realistically, you're only looking I hat to J hat, right? And I need that to be up and 1 on the 45. So, is this too hot of a line? Well, technically on a day, it's a weird thing about time, right? Between the max and now, this was a new company, like it just listed at $70. Holy shit, man. You gotta have that stuff at opening bell over there with Bob Azani, and, you gotta be running. Alright, so anyways, catch you on the next one.